Mr. Chairman, I call up Amendment HEN 20547.
Clerk will distribute the amendment.
I think it's available for distribution. Is it?
It's already circulated.
I think we have it electronically.
It's been distributed? Good. This amendment expresses the sense of the committee regarding the constitutional rights of American citizens to peaceably assemble.
You need to
On June the 1st, we witnessed an extraordinary and outrageous act here in our nation's capital.
Okay.
Federal law enforcement attacked peaceful demonstrators outside the White House. Some say it was tear gas, others say pepper gas, but they were gassed and rubber bullets were shot at them at the direction of Attorney General William Barr. According to press reports, the assault began with law enforcement kneeling, not to express solidarity with anti-racism efforts, as we've seen with some police officers around the country. They were kneeling to put on gas masks to protect themselves from the weapons they were about to fire at peaceful demonstrators. As soon as that was done, the president marched from the White House across Lafayette Square to St. John's Episcopal Church. The Attorney General, the Secretary of Defense, and the Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff all followed. It was a rare display of the might of the American government. What was the battleground that drew this show of force? The gathering, the peaceful gathering of Americans raising their voices, asking this country to stop racism. Unfortunately, these peaceful demonstrators got in the way and the path of the president on his way to a photo op. Attorney General Barr said he wanted to, quote, dominate the streets, close quote, and he redirected personnel from the FBI, the Bureau of Prisons, the U.S. Marshal Service, the ATF, ICE, the Border Patrol, TSA, and other agencies away from their normal duties to participate in this attack on Lafayette Square. Listen to what former Defense Secretary Jim Mattis said about this action. Quote, "We know we are better than the abuse of executive authority that we witnessed in Lafayette Square. We must reject and hold accountable those in office who would make a mockery of our Constitution." At this critical moment in our nation's history, one would expect the United States Senate Judiciary Committee to consider this measure, to stand up and speak up, to exercise our oversight duties over the Attorney General and the Department of Justice, to examine why lawful protesters engaged in their First Amendment rights were attacked by federal law enforcement officers, to discuss the pervasive systemic racism, the incidents of police brutality, and the ongoing fight in this country for civil rights. These issues go to the heart of this committee's jurisdiction. Instead, as we've learned, the chairman and majority are determined that this historic, distinguished committee will instead focus on the Mueller investigation into Russia's 2016 election interference. The streets of America and the world are afire, figuratively, with the passion people feel for justice. We are in the midst of a pandemic. We know full well the state of the economy. And yet, we are going to do the bidding of the president to consider an issue which may be of some value to him in his reelection campaign. Mr. Chairman, it's time to get back to basics. You said yourself, someone needs to be held accountable. I offer this amendment to your motion in the hope that we can return to the conversation and the committee's attention to the very real issues our country is facing. At the very least, we should go on record in defense of the constitutional rights of all Americans to peaceably assemble and express our disapproval with Attorney General Barr's actions.